The little girl kept asking one question, "Mom, where is my father?" Leah never knew how to answer her. She always promised he would come someday, but he never came, not even once. My name is Leah, and this story hurts. I was only 17 when everything changed. I came from a poor family where every meal mattered. We did not have much, but we still had dreams. My mother raised 5 children by herself. My father had died when I was young. Because of our poverty, I left school earlier than I wanted. I started doing small jobs around our neighborhood to help my mother. I believed my difficult childhood would eventually become better. Then I met Daniel, a young soldier. He was confident, friendly, and always spoke kindly to me. Whenever he visited our area, he looked for opportunities to talk with me. At 17, I thought his attention meant something special. Daniel told me beautiful things about our future. He said he wanted to marry me someday. He promised that he would always protect me. I believed every word because I wanted to believe him. I never imagined those promises would disappear so quickly. Several months later, I discovered something frightening. I was pregnant and I was only 17 years old. When I told Daniel, his expression suddenly changed. The man who once promised me everything became distant and silent. I asked him what we would do next. He told me not to worry because he would help. But days became weeks, and his promises became fewer. Eventually, he stopped answering my messages completely. I traveled to find him and asked for help. I reminded him that this was his child, too. Daniel refused to accept responsibility for the baby. He told me he had his own life and could not support us. I returned home with tears in my eyes. My mother immediately knew something terrible had happened. When I told her everything, she hugged me tightly. Neither of us knew how we would survive the coming months. My pregnancy became increasingly difficult. Our family had almost no money for nutritious food. Sometimes we survived on one simple meal each day. My mother often gave me her portion because she wanted my unborn baby to survive. When my daughter was finally born, I named her Amara. She was tiny, beautiful, and incredibly fragile. The moment I held her, I forgot about my own suffering. I promised her that I would always protect her, but promises could not buy food. Amara needed proper nutrition and medical attention. Unfortunately, our family could barely afford basic necessities. I searched for work whenever I could. Sometimes I left Amara with my mother while I worked for a small amount of money. I continued trying to contact Daniel. I wanted him to meet his daughter. I wanted him to see her beautiful eyes and tiny hands. Every time I called, however, he gave another excuse. Sometimes he said he was busy. Sometimes he promised to visit later. Eventually, he stopped responding completely. Amara grew up without knowing her father's face. As the months passed, Amara became weaker. She was often tired and struggled to gain enough weight. My mother became increasingly worried about her health. We knew she needed medical attention, but money remained our greatest problem. One afternoon, Amara became seriously ill. She could barely sit upright, and her little body looked extremely weak. I carried her to the nearest health center. I prayed desperately while waiting for the medical staff. The healthcare workers explained that she was severely malnourished. She needed urgent medical care and proper nutrition. They explained that severe malnutrition can become life-threatening, especially in young children. I felt completely helpless. I called Daniel again. This time, I begged him. "Please, your daughter needs you." There was silence on the phone. Then he said he could not help. He ended the call without asking about her condition. I sat beside my sick daughter and cried quietly. Amara fought for several days. She received treatment and some nutrition, but her little body was already extremely weak. I stayed beside her every night. I held her hand and whispered that everything would become better. But one morning, something changed. The room became painfully quiet. I called her name several times. "Amara?" She did not answer. I touched her tiny hand. It was cold. I called the nurse immediately. Doctors tried to help her, but they could not save her. My daughter was gone. I cannot describe the pain of that moment. It felt like someone had taken my entire future away. I held her small body and cried until I had no strength left. My mother stood beside me, crying silently. The funeral was arranged several days later. Our neighbors came because they knew how much we had suffered. Some people brought food, while others helped prepare the burial. Everyone expected Daniel to appear. I secretly hoped he would come. Maybe he would finally understand what happened. Maybe he would kneel beside his daughter's grave. Maybe he would apologize for everything. Maybe he would finally say goodbye. But Daniel never came. The funeral began without him. I looked toward the road several times. Every approaching person gave me a little hope. But none of them was Daniel. When the coffin was lowered into the ground, I could barely stand. I remembered holding Amara for the first time. I remembered her tiny fingers holding mine. I remembered the question she never got the chance to ask. "Where is my father?" I wish I could have given her a better answer. Years have passed since that terrible day. I still remember my daughter every morning. Her death taught me lessons that I wish I had learned much earlier. Poverty can make difficult situations even harder, especially when children need food and medical care. But Amara's story is not only about poverty, it is also about responsibility. A child should never be treated as someone else's problem. Parenthood requires love, protection, financial responsibility, and emotional support. Today, I tell young people to think carefully about their choices. Do not trust promises simply because someone speaks beautifully. If pregnancy happens, seek support from trusted family members and qualified health professionals. Never hide serious health problems because you are afraid of judgment. I also want parents and communities to remember vulnerable children. When families cannot provide enough nutritious food, children can face serious health risks. Early medical attention, proper nutrition, and community support can sometimes save a child's life. And to fathers who have children depending on them, remember this: your responsibility does not disappear because life becomes difficult. Your child needs more than money. Your child needs your presence, protection, and love. Daniel never came to Amara's funeral, but her story should not disappear with her. Let her story remind us about responsibility. Let it remind us about poverty and child nutrition. Let it remind us that every child deserves protection and care. And if you are learning English with this story, listen carefully to every sentence. Repeat the words aloud and practice speaking with confidence. Stories can teach us vocabulary, pronunciation, emotions, and important lessons about life. Keep listening, keep speaking, keep learning, and remember one final lesson. Sometimes the people we abandon need us most.